All right, so today we are diving into something that almost sounds like it could be right out of science fiction AI attending meetings for you.
Oh, yeah.
So, we've all heard AI hype before,
Right.
but I got to say, this one really piqued my interest, this research paper that we're looking at today from Microsoft.
Yeah.
It's about using large language models to create what they call meeting delegate systems.
It is really fascinating, isn't it? I think what really grabs me is how relatable this problem is.
Yeah.
We've all been in these meetings that we only need to be there for a small portion of it, or we're juggling schedules. And the idea of sending an AI to be there in your place is super tempting.
Right. I think that's really what grabbed me about this, too, is just like thinking about all the meetings that I have
Yeah.
to attend and how many of them I could have just sent a robot to.
Exactly.
So how does this actually work, though? I mean, is it as simple as like telling the AI, hey, go to my meeting and tell everyone I'm on vacation?
Not quite that simple, but it's surprisingly streamlined.
Okay.
The system has three core components, and the first is what they call information gathering.
Okay.
So before the meeting, you'd essentially give the AI a briefing, tell it when topics are going to be there,
hmm
any background info it needs, and also what materials it's allowed to share.
Okay, so like a pre-meeting cheat sheet for the AI.
Exactly.
Got it. So what happens when the meeting actually starts?
That's where the second component comes in, meeting engagement.
Okay.
The AI is actually analyzing the live transcript of the meeting
Oh, wow.
to figure out when and how to participate so it can respond to questions directed at you,
Okay.
offer relevant insights, and it can even ask clarifying questions on your behalf.
So the AI is actually processing the conversation in real time?
Yeah.
That's really impressive. Um, but how would it sound? I mean, is it going to sound robotic?
Well, that's where the third component comes in, and this is where it gets really wild. Voice generation.
Okay.
Using advanced text-to-speech, the AI can actually speak using a voice that sounds just like yours.
Wait, so you're saying the people in the meeting might not even realize they're talking to an AI?
That is the goal, yeah.
Wow. Okay, that brings up a lot of questions about transparency and disclosure.
Right.
I think we should definitely dig into those a little bit later.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did the researchers test this? I mean, do they actually just like throw it into some meetings and just see what happened?
Not quite. They actually created a benchmark data set using real meeting transcripts
Okay.
to rigorously test different LLMs, and they wanted to see how these AIs would do in four specific meeting scenarios.
Okay, what were the scenarios?
First, you have the explicit cue scenario where someone directly asks the AI a question.
Okay, makes sense.
Pretty straightforward. Then you have the implicit cue scenario, which is a bit more tricky.
Okay.
Here, the AI has to kind of understand the context of what's going on to know when to chime in, even if no one directly addresses the AI.
So it's not just about answering questions, it's about understanding the flow of the conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that sounds tough.
It is challenging.
What were the other two scenarios?
So there's chime in, where the AI proactively offers valuable information that you've given it ahead of time.
Okay.
And maybe most importantly, you have the keep silent scenario.
Keep silent. Why is that important?
Well, we've all been in those meetings where someone just won't stop talking, even if they have nothing to add.
Yeah.
It's crucial that the AI recognizes when it's better to stay quiet.
Right. It's like, being a good meeting delegate isn't just about speaking up, it's also knowing when to listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really interesting. Okay, so how did they actually perform in these tests? Was it able to hold its own in a realistic setting?
Well, the results are surprisingly promising.
Okay.
They tested a range of LLMs, including some of the most advanced ones out there, like GPT-4 and Gemini.
hmm
And they found across the board that over 60% of the time, the AI responses included at least one key point from what a human would ideally say.
Okay, that's pretty encouraging. It sounds like they're getting good at this.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note the best performing AIs weren't just speaking up all the time. They had a good balance between engaging actively and knowing when to just stay quiet.
That's interesting. I guess you wouldn't want an AI delegate that just constantly interrupts or dominates the conversation.
Exactly.
Did they run into any surprises or challenges during the testing?
They did, and some of them were very unexpected.
Like what?
Well, one thing that really threw the AI off was transcription errors.
Really?
Even small mistakes, like if a name was misspelled in the transcript, it could really disrupt the AI's understanding.
Huh, I hadn't considered that.
It really highlights how reliant these AI systems are on accurate data input.
Yeah.
And it points to a need for AI that can understand the nuances of spoken language even better.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So besides those challenges with transcription, were there any other surprises?
There was one interesting finding. They found that the AI didn't need super specific instructions on when to share certain information.
Hmm.
So this suggests that LLMs are becoming more sophisticated in their ability to understand broader context and apply knowledge appropriately.
That's pretty remarkable. It almost sounds like they're developing a sense of timing and relevance,
Okay.
like a human would.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here? What are the next steps in actually bringing this technology to life?
Well, it's one thing to build this technology. It's another thing to actually integrate it into our lives responsibly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And the paper actually spends a good amount of time talking about
Okay.
this idea of a phased approach to deploying this technology.
A phased approach, so you're not just going to like unleash attending AIs into the world all at once.
Exactly. They propose a gradual rollout
Okay.
where you start with more limited capabilities and then increase the AI's autonomy over time as you develop and implement safeguards.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Walk me through these phases. How would this actually work?
Sure, so they outline 3 phases: execute, assist, and finally delegate.
Okay, those names seem pretty self-explanatory.
They are. Okay. So in the first phase, execute the AI is basically like a very advanced note taker.
Okay.
It strictly follows your instructions, and any information that you give it ahead of time, it can respond to simple questions, but it's not making any independent decisions.
So in this phase, the AI isn't really thinking for itself. It's just executing commands.
Right.
Got it. What about the next phase, assist?
So assist is where things get a little more interesting.
Okay.
Now, the AI can start reasoning over more sensitive data, but it still needs a human to approve any actions that it wants to take.
Okay.
So think of it like having an AI brainstorming partner. It can give you suggestions, but you always have the final say.
So it's still a lot of human oversight.
Right.
Okay. And then we finally get to delegate, which I'm guessing is where the AI really gets to flex its muscles.
Exactly. In Delegate, the AI now has full autonomy to collect information, share insights, make decisions on your behalf, all based on the goals that you've defined for it.
So it's like giving power of attorney to your AI delegate for your meetings.
Right. And of course, it's really important to have really strong accountability measures in place here, like really good audit logs that can track the AI's actions and decisions.
Makes sense. What strikes me about this phased approach is that it acknowledges that we're not just dealing with a technological challenge here, but it's a societal one too,
Mm-hmm.
We need to figure out how to integrate this into our work lives in a way that is beneficial and responsible.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think even those early phases have their own value. Imagine a daily Scrum meeting where the AI is there. It just presents the updates that you've given. It gathers progress reports. It's
Mhm.
not fully autonomous, but it could still save you a ton of time and make sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, right. And it seems like deploying these systems in those early phases would also give us some really valuable real-world experience that we can use to iron out any kinks before we hand over the reins completely.
Right.
Did they actually do any real-world testing of these phases?
They did some preliminary demos of that execute phase. They had the AI participate in a simulated Scrum meeting
Okay.
with human participants, and they tested out a few different LLMs there, including GPT 3.5, Turbo, GPT-4, and GPT-4o.
So a mix of some older and some more advanced models.
Right.
What happened? Did the AI pass the test?
It was a mixed bag.
Okay.
Interestingly, GPT 3.5 Turbo did not perform well at all.
Really?
It just really couldn't handle the complexity of the meeting, even at that very basic execute level.
Wow, that's a good reminder that even though these AI seem incredibly advanced, they're not all created equal.
Exactly.
So what about the other models?
GPT-4 and GPT-4o did much better, generally providing relevant responses.
Okay.
However, they did still struggle with repetition, sometimes repeating information that had already been shared.
Oh, so like they were trying to fill the silence but didn't quite understand that they were just saying the same thing again.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Okay. Another challenge they ran into was latency. Even the fastest model, GPT-4o took about 5 seconds to generate a response.
Yeah, that would be noticeable in a fast-paced meeting.
It would.
So are we just stuck with these limitations, or are there ways to make these systems better and more seamless? Yeah, 5 seconds feels like an eternity when you're in a meeting,
It does.
It feels like the technology needs to catch up a little bit before we can really trust an AI to handle these things smoothly.
So there are a few promising areas, for improvement as more advanced LLMs are developed.
Mm-hmm.
We can expect them to handle complex conversations more effectively and generate responses more quickly.
So basically just waiting for the AI to get smarter and faster.
That's one approach, but there's another one that's really interesting.
Okay.
The research actually suggests that we could fine-tune smaller models specifically for these meeting-related tasks.
Okay.
In fact, a relatively lightweight model called Llama 3-8B performed surprisingly well in those benchmark tests.
Mm.
And with some targeted training, it could be a real contender for this kind of real-time meeting delegation.
So it's not just about throwing more processing power at the problem, it's about making the AI an expert in the specific domain of meetings.
Exactly, and that specialization could also help with that latency issue.
Okay.
There's been some exciting work on optimizing Llama 3-8B for real-time communication. And one implementation actually achieved a latency just 500 milliseconds.
Wow, that's practically instantaneous.
It is.
So we could potentially have an AI that's not only smart and context-aware, but also super fast in its responses.
Right.
Are there any other tricks up our sleeve to make this even better?
Well, one possibility is to incorporate more sophisticated, what they call windowed context management.
Okay,
Essentially, this allows the AI to really focus on the most relevant parts of the conversation without getting bogged down by what was said earlier.
I see. So like a mental filter to prevent the AI from getting stuck in the past and repeating itself.
Exactly. But I think the most exciting possibility is in this area of multimodal language models.
Okay.
So imagine an AI that can actually listen to the meeting audio directly.
Oh, wow.
Instead of relying on a transcript, it could pick up on those subtle cues like tone of voice, maybe even nonverbal communication.
No, that would be a game changer. They're like giving the AI a much more human, like, understanding of the conversation.
Right. It's about bridging that gap between the digital world of AI and the nuanced world of human interaction.
It really sounds like we're on the verge of something truly transformative here. The idea of AI attending meetings for us. It's not just some futuristic fantasy anymore.
Yeah.
It feels like a real possibility with real research and development behind it.
It does, and this technology has the potential to change how we work, how we collaborate, how we make decisions. It's really a glimpse into the future,
Yeah.
where we can reclaim our time, focus on our most crucial tasks, and maybe even make meetings just a little more enjoyable.
Well, I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about today. This has been The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.